25th, 1999.
From NBC News, this is Today with Jack Ford, live from Studio 1A in Rockefeller Plaza.
And good morning, I'm Ann Curry. Jack Ford is taking the day off today.
And I'm Al Roker, and Ann, I'll tell you, it's good to be in an air-conditioned building today because...
Racing's biggest crowns, the Tour de France. But Lance is already a winner. We'll look at his miraculous recovery from cancer just 3 years ago and meet a young man who's been inspired by his story.
Well, you know, we've been all reminded this past week of how John Kennedy Jr. responded to the challenge of living up to his father's name and his legacy. Well, we're going to talk to a young man who shared that challenge, Martin Luther King III. We'll get his unique perspective. Ann?
And later on today, Money Magazine's Gene Chasky will be here with some ideas on how to chart where you stand financially and what to do about it. We're going to check out Pokémania.
Gotta catch 'em all!
And if you haven't heard about it, just ask your kids.
Yeah.
What started out as a video game has turned into a trading card craze, and my kids are just nuts about it.
That's right, Pikachu.
That's right, Pikachu.
We're also going to show you how to get the fat out of your fridge, give it a health food makeover. And our buddy pet expert Warren Eckstein's going to be here with some tips for caring for your pet in an emergency. And in this kind of weather, that is not that far from reality.
People don't think about it, but there are some things that you can do. But first, let's check today's news and weather with Soledad O'Brien, who's at the MSNBC News Desk. Soledad, good morning.
And good morning to you. Good morning to you, Al, and good morning, everyone. Now, back to Ann and Al.
Soledad, thank you so much this morning. Well, up next, the miraculous story of cyclist Lance Armstrong, back from cancer and on top of his game.
Also, we're going to talk with Martin Luther King III about the bond he shared with John F. Kennedy Jr. We'll be right back.
Now heads a foundation to help others in their battle against cancer. 16-year-old Richie Martin is a lymphatic cancer survivor who was inspired in his fight by Lance Armstrong, which was in your recovery. Now let's turn to Al.
Thanks a lot, Ed. John F. Kennedy Jr. and Martin Luther King III have shared a unique bond at birth. They were given a famous name. At an early age, both lost their dads to an assassin's bullet. Both have grown up to become extraordinary young men, both under the weight of tremendous expectations. Martin Luther King III is in Los Angeles this morning. Good morning, Mr. King.
Good morning.
Now, I know that you've known John F. Kennedy Jr. You knew him for a number of years. What were your impressions of him?
Well, he was certainly a very kind and warm and just an extraordinary human being. One who really walked with kings and queens, but yet retained the common touch.
Now, you both have known each other for a long time. Did you ever both talk about what it was like to have famous fathers and fathers who died under similar conditions?
More than anything else, we talked about how we wanted to serve our respective communities and the areas that we worked in. We never actually discussed the actual legacies of our fathers.
When you talk about legacy, why do you think that your father's legacy and JFK Jr.'s dad's legacy have endured for so long?
Well, I think that, first of all, both men were remarkably dedicated to service. And in this day and age, we need role models in addition to what we typically embrace, which is entertainment and athletics. And Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy just gave tremendously to this country, made phenomenal contributions.
When you talk about contributions and legacies, for most of us, looking at having a father who's famous, who has a legacy, would be something to enjoy and celebrate, but yet there's another side to it, isn't there?
Well, I would say there's certainly blessings and burdens. I'll start with the burdens very quickly. When you do something good or bad, if it's bad or good, it's magnified, but particularly when it's bad. For example, I ran for public office for 7 years, ran for an office and lost, and it was known throughout the nation. John Kennedy Jr., of course, took the bar and failed 2 or 3 times. But it's not that those things happen. In life, you're going to have failures, but it's that you have the capacity to get back up and move forward. And John just had a remarkable capacity, just an unusual individual, one who I think was trying to bridge politics, entertainment, and to encourage young people to participate in the political process.
And how do you do it? How do you handle it? How do you bridge that legacy?
Well, and the other thing, let me say this about John also. John of course, became his own person and in starting a magazine, becoming a journalist. I kind of followed directly in my father's footsteps, assuming the head of the organization that he founded, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And it's a greater challenge for me because how do you, if my father was a lawyer, I could certainly maybe build a great law firm across the country, or a doctor, I could build clinics, but how do you build on, in a real sense, to that legacy? And so it's a challenge every day.
All right. Well, Martin Luther King III, I know you're living up to the challenge. We thank you for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All righty. And we'll be back right after this.
More than 500 people attended. NBC's Nora O'Donnell reports.
The Kennedy clan came together for another memorial, this time for Lauren Bassett, an investment banker who became a public figure in death. The parents of Lauren Bassett and Carolyn Bassett Kennedy wanted a private farewell, but instead crowds gathered outside the church. David Dahl, a high school classmate, paid tribute with flowers at a makeshift memorial.
I know a lot of people don't care for all the media, but I think it's a nice tribute to Lauren and the family.
Here in Greenwich, Connecticut, residents of this affluent New York suburb describe Lauren Bassett as bright, outgoing, and career-driven. In the words of Senator Edward Kennedy, these two sisters were extraordinary women of high accomplishment. Outside Lauren's New York apartment, mourners came to say goodbye, leaving cards and candles. Now, with the memorials over, the healing continues. Nora O'Donnell, NBC News, Greenwich, Connecticut.
President Clinton is in Morocco today for the funeral.
Will more than likely be Caroline